Oh man, it's the Iron Snail of extreme YouTube fame, sometimes known by the even more exciting name of Michael Kristy. Michael Snail, welcome to the Shoecast. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you? Ben, do you go by Stitchdown or do you go by Ben?
I've started going by Ben Stitchdown.
That's what you're in my phone as. Wow, that was
Yeah.
weird. For a second, my heart pumped where I was like, does he know? I don't even put his last name in.
Yeah, it's like I don't know anybody's last name.
Yeah.
It's like John, Julie's dad.
Yeah,
Little girls aren't named Julie these days, but
that's true. I have my mom, and then I have my ex-girlfriend's mom's number in my phone, Carly's mom, and my mom. So when I say call mom, my phone sometimes calls Carly's mom. Or even worse, my mom hears when I say call mom, Siri says, do you want to call mom or Carly's mom? And my mom is like, what is going on?
is Carly's mom psyched when you call? Like happy to catch up?
I'm probably not the most excited. It's been 9.5 years since I've dated her daughter.
People like to get a call. Nobody gets a call anymore.
No, it's usually, the second she answers to, it's like, oh, sorry. And then we move on.
Back to the Ben Stitchdown thing. I shout out Stridewise.
Nick Stridewise.
I've now have called for years Nick Stridewise. Sometimes I'll call him Stridewise. Sometimes I'll call him Nick Stridewise. Like in conversation with like other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of liked it. And so I adopted it myself. Ben Stitchdown.
Nick Stridewise. Yeah, Nick's in my phone twice. Nick English, Nick Stridewise. But I always type in Stridewise. What am I in your phone as?
It's got to be Michael Iron Snail. It's got to be. Michael Kristy Iron Snail. We're getting more professional with this.
Wow, that's like a run-on sentence. It's so long.
Wait, let's get this one out of the way. What's an Iron Snail, and why are you the Iron Snail?
That is a great question. An iron snail is a scaly-footed gastropod, which the original name of the channel was Wool and Lanolin. Wool and then what the wool is covered in when it comes off of a sheep. And I was like, it's just another and name. Like, there's this and this, thread and needle. So I was like,
a hot restaurant in 2007.
Precisely.
On the Lower East Side.
Precisely. And it was just like, one day I was like, you know what, this is just another and name. And I started working for Theo and Harris. So I was like, there's so many ands. So my girlfriend, I've always been fascinated with like really deep sea creatures. My girlfriend Taylor sent me a link to this website that still exists, but you can basically scroll through the ocean. And as you go deeper and deeper, it says, at this depth, you're in the hadal zone. There's not a lot of life here. At this depth, there's this sea creature. They do this. And all the way plunked at the bottom was the scaly-footed gastropod, the iron snail. And I was like, I kind of like that. So I thought about it for a while. And then I was out with Taylor and then our couple friends. And I was like, what do you all think of the iron snail? And they were like, yeah, that is perfect. So the second I got home from the trip, changed everything to the iron snail. To a few people that watched the channel at the time's dismay. They're very unsatisfied.
You're like good at handling high pressure environments.
Well, what was cool about the iron snail is that it covers itself in iron. And obviously my big thing, like what I really like to talk about is jackets. So I was like, that's kind of cool. Like something else that covers itself in something for protection. Don't look it up though. They're really gross looking. Like,
well, I mean, I did.
You already looked it up? Shocking, right?
Yeah, but like compared to other stuff that's like down there.
Oh, yeah.
Like honestly, they seem rather kind of friendly and inviting.
Yeah.
Like they're
everything else has like little lights to lure you in and try and eat you. Which also, those anglerfish are typically pretty small, I think.
I've always pictured them being much larger than myself.
Because of Finding Nemo.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. We are not clownfish sized.
All right, so just in terms of establishing like the what you do part of everything, you've got the YouTube channel, you've developed the Iron Snail clothing line.
Mm-hmm.
What is the totality of your Iron Snailness?
That pretty much sums it up. We have the YouTube channel. Obviously, there's the Instagram and stuff like that for short form. But then the clothing brand is really the big kind of encompassing thing around it, where I'd really like to build a full line that the YouTube channel talks about, the clothing brand talks about the YouTube channel, and then you have the circle of the snail where everything is kind of centered around that. But really, it's obsessing over every single detail in a garment, in a boot, in whatever it may be. So that way, one, it's fascinating. We find out about it. But two, when we're working on clothing, it's like, okay, now that I know you use this material for that, or this for that, or you have a gusset there, that's cool to implement on our clothing.
The way that you approach the clothes, which I don't know any, I'm sorry. But like certainly the videos, like there's a lot of people making a whole lot of content out there about clothes, about footwear, obviously about anything. And yeah, just the way that you do it seems to kind of stem from that appreciation of like good and quality and the right way. Where did that come from? Like, where'd that start for you?
I've always been really, really obsessed with like how good can we make something? Like how good can it possibly be? Forever. My dad is a fisherman, so I remember like he was making sinkers with like melted cans and stuff like that. And then I had to do a school project. I forget what the project was, but I was like, okay, let's, instead of doing like a cutout of a cardboard box, like let's do the sinker thing, but we'll make a mold and make a big like metal box. And it worked. It was a weird thing, but since then I was like, I don't want to do cardboard, it's too flimsy. We should do like tin or aluminum or something crazy like that. And then it kind of just really, as long as I can remember, like when I didn't know anything about clothing, when I got gift cards as a kid to like Amazon, I was like, oh, let me type in t-shirt, search by highest price, and buy that one so I could see what's special about it. So to answer your question, I have no idea.
Sounds like the science project.
It was Armani, by the way, t-shirt. My sister said, she said, you absolutely cannot buy that. She's like, you can get 10 t-shirts that are going to be just as fine. And I was like, but why is that one that much money?
Did you get it?
No, I didn't get it. She told my mom.
But like one of the things I'm fascinated by is just like, why do people start caring about any of this stuff? Like obviously shoes and boots and the good ones. But you know, like everything's kind of a commodity. Like theoretically people want things that'll like hold up and last and, you know, look good, like be something that they're like proud to have or wear or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I feel like it's tough for quote unquote like normal people to understand that those things like might also be expensive. And we're not talking about like sports cars or whatever. Like they obviously are going to be. Yeah. But yeah, just the idea that like one could get attached to the idea of quality and then like think about it and seek it out and, you know, if you kind of educate around it and then like go and manufacture stuff too. Like I don't know. It's like, it's not for everybody. And I'm thrilled obviously that it is for some people.
Yeah. A big thing, and I mean, there's the Thunderdome and everything like that, but a big thing is like when you hit quality, things tend to evolve in a fascinating way rather than like, oh, this kind of stinks now, I don't want to wear this, or like whatever it may be. If it's not something you can wear, if it gets cooler with age, or if it modifies in a way that you get more into, like everybody likes raw denim. Some people like it when it comes in dark, but most people are like, I want to see how it fades. What does it look like? How does it change? I want to see like the first hole in my jeans is actually really exciting. Like I'm not going to throw these out. I think that's kind of like a hobby in and of itself, where it's like you're going out and you're like, oh, I got to wear those boots because those boots are going to look so much better when they're creased up and dark and dirty. And that's what got me into raw denim. And I feel like I got into fashion probably in college. And then when you find out that like there's a game to be played at the same time, that's what starts to suck you in, of like that guy's boot or Andrew Chen's famous Viberg boots. You know what I mean?
Like a whole story on them. I like went and did like a photo shoot of those boots.
Because look what happened.
Everybody was like, finally, the story of these. Like people were actually saying, finally, the full story of these boots.
Yeah, there's
like they've been waiting for it.
Well, you posted it. I think I
because he wore them so fucking hard.
Yeah, exactly. And it was Thread and Steel, I think his Instagram is. He's a cool dude.
Shout out Thread and Steel, love him.
You know, okay, great. He had boots that were aged, again, Viberg's rough outs that were aged by Mike something, who worked for Viberg for a little bit. Frank. And it was, do you know who I'm talking about?
Frank. It was
Oh,
Frank
was it
instead
Frank?
of Mike something. Yeah.
Okay, Frank.
Yeah, Frank.
I remember when you have nothing to do with a photo like that, you just screenshot it because you're like, I gotta hold on to this. I remember seeing that, and you're just like, I gotta get those. I gotta wear the rough out down. I gotta get it shiny. That's what sucks you in fast. And then it becomes like, well, how was that one made? Why is that this thick? How does that feel that way? I like the tongue on Viberg, so like, let me see something else with the tongue. And then you get sucked in. That's a funny thing to say, but then you get sucked in to the world of raw denim and everything like that.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like the outset is, well, they're boots and they're the good ones, and I've seen pictures of good boots and they're all beat up, and mine are going to be just like that.
Yeah.
And then you start to go through them and you're like, wait, why aren't mine like looking like that? You know? And you're trying to like tune them up a little bit, and that could be because you're like, I don't know, you're not wearing them hard enough, but you are maybe not using like the proper conditioning approach, or it's just like not the leather that does that, right? And then you start to think about care. You start to think about like specific type of leathers, like that. That's really where the whole Thunderdome idea came from. One was like, why do we have so many boots? Why are we not wearing these boots that get better when they get worn heavily? And also, like, you can show people where they might go. Like very, very visibly. And it's like, this is connected to obviously this boot and this maker and the pattern and the last and all that, but like the leather starting to become like more and more of like a key story. And then you got to go and figure out like leather.
Yes, exactly. It's that formula exactly. Like when you were talking about that, I was thinking like I went on this little rampage for a bit when I first started to get into it, where any boot I liked, any jacket I liked, anything that was worn in, I would message those people and be like, how do you wear it? What do you do with that? What do you do with this? This poor guy who's wearing a Taylor Stitch Moto jacket, and I DM'd him on Instagram. He posted his jacket. I would just search Taylor Stitch Moto jacket on like tags, and the jacket was like faded instead of darkened, and I was debating on getting one, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that fade. So I messaged this guy who's proudly posting pictures of his jacket, and I was like, why is it faded like that? I think it's supposed to darken. Like, do you think it looks good? I don't really know if that looks good. And then he was like, I don't know, man. I just wear it when I'm on my bike. But then you really get sucked in where I'm like, oh, okay, well, like those boots are, the beauty from those is that they're really, really heavily conditioned. Do I want to condition them that much? Do I want to let it go a little bit longer? And you start to like come up with this formula of like, no, I want to do it then, or like, no, I want to do it now, or I don't want to overdo it. Like, I don't want to add a faux patina because my boot is smothered in conditioner all the time. And then you're just obsessed, because then it's like, well, do I want to do Obanoffs, or do I want to do just a regular wax, or do I want to try this, or do I want to try that? And then you're done, because there's no end.
No, I mean, that's like there's no like answer even, you know?
Yeah, exactly. There's no
like
right way.
In a true sense. And that we'll get to this in a little bit, but like that's one of my favorite things about like this little world, this little space, is that everybody online like wants the answer. They want, you know, what's the most expensive shirt is like a little easier than like what's the best shirt, and somebody's got that answer for you. There's probably like 50 guys that have that answer for you. Yeah. But like that's not the answer.
There is no answer. That's what's maddening.
There's like answers along the way for an individual that cares and is like interested in all this stuff. But you gotta do the work. You gotta like go and experience loss and failure.
You have to go through it. You have to buy the wrong size 15 times.
You gotta buy the wrong size 15 times. You have to like stay exactly like the same weight and musculature for the rest of your life. That's important.
I know. We're working on our shirt right now, and we paused on the pattern for a little bit, and then I moved, so I got all out of my workout routine.
You look great.
But I was at home, and I was like, all of these shirts shrunk in the wash. Like, I don't know why. And then I go to the pattern makers, which is just a bunch of like women, and I take my shirt off, and I put the shirt that we were working on that last time I was there was kind of a boxy cut and a little bit wider. And this time, it doesn't look right. It's like the arms are too tight, the stomach's a little too tight, and I was like, I think I might have gained weight. And they all started laughing, and I was like, oh, no, I definitely know I gained weight. So it's like, even when you're designing stuff, you have to have like a fit model, and you find out like, oh, okay, now, because everything, I was like, everybody's making smalls too small nowadays. I was like, but they didn't last year.
I continue to think it was the new washing machine at the house.
Yes, yeah.
They also happened to purchase the same model of.
I'm like, oh, that's crazy.
At
I
the
can't
pattern
believe
shop.
this water shrinks it. Maine water shrinks my shirts. New York water didn't.
Again, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
Hey, just a couple quick things before we get back to the show, but hold on tight because you're going to love them. First, Boot Camp 2025, Chicago. It's our literal world's fair of the greatest handmade boots, shoes, leather, and other crazily high-quality goods, and a community that loves them all. It's honestly just kind of a big party. You can meet the makers, get sized, see how this stuff is actually made up close and personal in a way that's very difficult to do anywhere else other than a shoe factory. So we just kind of bring them there. We've got activities and events from Thursday to Sunday, but the main expo, the core day you need to be there, Saturday, November 8th, 2025, Chicago, Illinois. You'll probably be sad if you don't come to this. Perhaps very sad, and we don't want that. Tickets available now at stitchdownbootcamp.com. See you in Chicago. Okay, thing two. The world's premier leather footwear agent contest is oh so back. Stitchdown Patina Thunderdome 5 starts this October 21st, 2025, and it's gonna rip. All you need for a shot at 40 grand, who knows, maybe 50 grand, maybe more. Worth of prizes is a new, unworn pair of boots or shoes, consuming desire to become one with them over the course of 6 months, and a few photos along the way. Honestly, there's nothing more fun in footwear than the Dome. You'll love it, I promise. More info at stitchdown.com. Okay, thank you for listening. Back to the show. You've covered on your channel a ton of the makers that we love over here. Crown Northampton, Russell Moccasin, Fight, Paraboot, Danner, Red Wing.
Limmer's coming up.
Yes, which I talked with Adam about that the other day. I'm like completely excited about that because they're just hell of a story to tell.
Oh, yeah.
Goral, yeah. You made some shoes with Goral, which we'll get to.
Yep.
So great work. I went back and watched a lot of your videos that I hadn't seen, including like the first video and the second video, and which I'm sure you love when people do that.
Oh yeah.
But it did seem in the beginning that you were like, you're covering Bluntstone, you're covering Doc Martens, Birkenstocks, like,
yep.
You know, stuff that ultimately is kind of like, just like a little simpler, right? Like things that are like glued together essentially.
Yeah.
Was that like, this is what people want to see on YouTube, or is it a situation where like you've just seen your appreciation for quality constructed footwear grow as you dug in deeper over like about 6 years, I'd say?
It's definitely the second one. Like the original idea for the YouTube channel, I was working computer science at the time. So I was like, I don't want to put a lot of effort into this. I want it to be really, really natural. Like I don't want to overdo anything. I just want camera down. Doesn't even need to be a good camera. Just talk about it, move on, and just post. That was it. I wanted it to be really light. And then the Bluntstone video I posted, I was talking about how the boots were made, and a guy jumped in and corrected me on the construction. And he was, I said, do you have a source? I'm not trying to offend him, but he was like, I've worked in the industry for 40 years. I don't need a source. I am the source. And I was like, whoa. But that was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, those aren't made how I thought. That's the version that I thought these were. What's up with those? But that was a slow process. Then you talk about Birkenstocks, because I have them in my house and I'm wearing them every day. So it's like, well, I want to look up that. And then someone comments, you'd really like mountain clogs or something like that. And then it's like, oh, let me look at those. What's different? And then those little questions that you have each time start to basically push you into different narratives of everything. Taylor Stitch video I did about the jacket, I think was my second video. Taylor Stitch reached out and was like, those don't fit you. Your clothes don't fit you. Let us get you some that fit. You'll like them way better. That's why you say they look weird. They sent them over and I was like, oh, I don't know how to get my measurements right. So let me look at these again. And it just opens and opens and opens and opens.
How do you kind of parse all that information out there, right? Like you've got website copy, which is obviously like varied, right? In terms of like actual information about something. You've got the marketing from any brand around that about why their product's so great and functional and all this stuff. You've got information online from maybe an expert, maybe not, and then you can over the years see that information like parroted by everybody else because they like also heard it online or from a brand. And like in the end, like everybody's trying to sell you something, and you're trying to figure out what's actually good and what's actually true. Like, how do you approach that, and has it changed in the half decade plus that you've been doing this?
Yeah, it's definitely, in the beginning, it's like you're saying, you're just like, oh, okay, everybody's saying that, so let me look at a few other things, make sure I think that's true. You don't really have a big network, and then as you start to grow more, it's like, well, most of the time I can call the brand, which is great sometimes. Sometimes you have brands that are like, no, it's perfect, or they don't give you the full story. And then I like to just really, really narrow in onto every single aspect of something. Like if we're talking about crepe was a big thing that just came up. The purity of crepe versus the processing of crepe versus all of this different stuff. The tough part was I posted about it on my Instagram story, and a brand was like, I said, this crepe is not as pure as this crepe. I think that's why it's dark. Not sure. Then that brand reached out to me and was like, actually, it's even more pure. So then I was like, well, what do you think about the oxidation of crepe? And you kind of get into this circle of, then you get into crepe production. Then you try to look at like crepe houses or videos about crepe and see the difference and see what people are talking about. And just trying to get as low in the chain as you possibly can. And nowadays, since we're making our own stuff, there's a lot more resources available. Like I can call someone that is farming cotton or someone that's spinning cotton. Or if I really want to call someone because I'm not sure something is correct, I'll call a different brand. Like I'll call a lot of times Luke at Russell Moccasin. I'll just be like, hey, I talked to this company about like how crepe is processed. Do you know anything about that? He's like, oh, let me ask my guy that gets the crepe. Oh, let me ask this guy. Here's the information. And it becomes just this whole kind of journalistic approach where I'm like, the last thing I want to do is say the wrong thing. And I also don't want to falsely hype something if it's not as good as it seems. Or if it is just a really boring thing and it's like, it is just... Anyways, the long version of that is if someone's saying crepe is from a different location and that's why it's having this characteristic, and someone else is saying it's because of the oxidization of crepe or how it's processed, you kind of have to find what is actually in the middle here. Because I don't think it's this, and I don't think it's totally this. So what is it? A lot of research, so that's the answer.
And I think you're doing a great job of it. Like if you were doing a shitty job, I, wouldn't have had John. Yeah. Simply wouldn't have done it. And I also, one of the things I really like about your videos is that when you get into this technical stuff, you will sometimes be like, yeah, or that might be right,
Something like that.
Yeah, like however you kind of do it with like an aside or a cutoff. And I think that there might be certain viewers who are like, but tell me, like, well, is it or is it not? Because that's what they're used to, right? Like they're used to being told absolutely this is the truth by somebody they consider to be credible, whether they are or not. And I think that it's actually like a positive, right? It's like maybe it turns into something where somebody wants to go and kind of like seek out more information on their own and like, put it together for themselves and then like maybe get out there somewhere and like reshare it. But yeah, it's like this just interesting, it's like, it's definitive. Like this is the case until like, it's not. And like, the research kind of like ran out of steam, but like, let's go step in a stream and test them out or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't see that a lot. You don't see people being like, well, actually, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I genuinely, I want to know stuff, and if there is no answer, like that's what I know. Or like sometimes, like right again, we're working on t-shirts, so we're looking at spinning types. There's a new compact spinning, which is supposed to be stronger than ring spinning, but then that goes into like a million different specifications. It's like, well, compact spinning is only stronger than ring spinning if you use a medium staple cotton fiber. So ring is stronger if you use long. So then it gets to the point where it's like, I don't know, because then I have to, or for any product, it's like you have to call the farmer. The farmer has a tolerance on the length of their fiber. Their spinners have a tolerance on their combing. They have a tolerance on their spinning. They have this and that and this and that. So a lot of times it comes down to like, there is no answer, mostly because nobody cares. You'll never notice,
I care.
I care too, but it gets to a point where like, of the t-shirts, for example, I'm like, this baseline t-shirt that we're making, is already better than 99.999% of all the t-shirts out there. So there is, not a big market of really big brands researching hyper durability, because we're already 4 steps past that. And I see that a lot of times with boots, in the world of boots too. It's like, these are just so much more built than what people generally wear. The comparison is not even fair anymore. So when you get to those weeds, they're like, it is the best. It's hard to explain how much it surpasses everything else.
And I think like a lot of that is, especially with the footwear brands that I mentioned earlier, like it's baked into just what they do from the history. And I think like the historical approach, like not everybody cares, like generally. I think people watching your channel like really love that. Like I'll find myself going off. People are like, what shoes are those? It's like, well, this is, a 127-year-old company in Berlin, Wisconsin. And like, let me tell you about this overlap seam. And they're like, how much do they cost? Like, it's like,
they're only $800.
It's too much. It's entirely too much for you. Like, if you don't care about this, like, you're going to say that it's too much.
Yeah.
But like the way that you build that, I think is like, it's really effectively done. Like, it's fun. It moves. It, has these kind of humorous points to it, etc. Are there some kind of like historical nuggets from any of the footwear brands that you've covered that like stick with you, that if somebody asks you what you're wearing, like you might start kind of dropping on them, or that you just like sit around and think about? Because like the historical research, I'd say, is, I don't know, possibly even surpasses like the technical stuff that you've done. Like you've done a great job with it. What's rattling around in your head from some of these brands, like weird, interesting, or otherwise?
The thing that I always lead with on every call with everybody is Crown Northampton, which I said in the video. The fact that there's hand stitching on the uppers because Chris wanted to keep his entire staff employed during COVID. So he drove around and said like, well, there's no big sewing machine that I can put in your house. So like, hand sew the uppers, I'll pick them up. That, brilliant. I almost get goosebumps because it's just so clever. Russell Moccasin, obviously Appalachian Trail is a big thing. Fascinating. L.O. Bean, again, moccasin construction, everything like that. L.O. Bean was founded right before, but started to get its legs right when the U.S. was starting to go on vacations and saying, like, the city puts evil in your soul. We need to go into the woods. All of a sudden, there's this brand in Maine that's like, great. Here's all the stuff that you could possibly need. Yeah. Those foundational things, those stick with me constantly. And Russell Moccasin has so many, that's why I bring them up. Or Luke is just really good at conveying it. But, like, their Oneida was used to like step on war balloons because it didn't pop them. Stuff like that where you're like, whoa, that's cool.
Luke, like I know that when him and Joe like purchased Russell and he took over running it, he was somebody who had history with the brand, right? Like he wore the stuff and, kind of grew up in it. And maybe there's like some grandfather's boots story in there somewhere that I'm forgetting the details of. I don't know. But the historical knowledge of the brand and like specific like things and people that he had like 3 months into that job, I was like, dude, he is the right guy for this.
There's a lot of great people that I've spoken to, so I don't want to discount anybody else, but him and Chris over at Crown Northampton, there's no question you can ask to make them even hesitate. It's like, I have some really niche question about the history about something like this. Like, did the Premier Chukka, because we're working on a collab, did that use army studs or did that use like quick lacing systems or what? He's like, well, in the 1970s they were doing XYZ. And there's no hesitation. Where I'm like, wow, you don't want to go check in the archives? He's like, no, I just was looking at it yesterday.
I already did.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dude, and on Chris, I actually I had a lovely chat with him this morning.
Oh, there you go.
And he showed me, like, are you aware of these, was it like world's greatest sneaker like project that they've been doing? I forget because I told him I was talking to you. I was like, does he know?
I think so. Do I know? I don't think so.
Dude, they're crazy. So I've known about him for a while, but like with Chris, it's often like, yeah, we're doing this thing and it's gonna be cool, and then like he just kind of disappears like back into the lab.
Yeah.
He's not sending over like, oh, we took the next step here. Like, check this out to like get you all excited.
Yeah.
But he finally like finished these things up, and they're basically like the Harleston hand stitch that you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Kind of, but it's a hole cut pattern with one seam like right at the bottom of the lacing system. So it like loops all the way around.
Whoa, okay.
Hand stitch there. And then
all the way around?
It's a hole cut. So it's a single piece of
Yeah.
leather.
Wow.
And it attaches to itself like right at the bottom of like the interior, like medial side of the bottom of the lacing system. And then it is like fully resolable. So it's not a cup sole. Mm-hmm. There's a welt, but the welt is like, up and down basically. So it's this big strip of shoulder leather. The regular, like the rest of the upper leather is Baker calf, I think he said.
Nice.
And then this is like Baker shoulder, and that attaches to the upper, which then gets attached to stitch through the midsole, but like sideways somehow. Like I need to see like a breakdown of this. He's going to send over some videos.
Yeah.
And then it's put onto a crepe sole, which they look kind of dark. So maybe they're the good ones.
Well, there's a whole thing behind that.
It's crazy. It's like, it is legitimately like revolution. They're going to be like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Completely handmade. But yeah, the box itself costs like $200, like made in England.
Is it Woodford?
It's got like drawers and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's going to be like Crown branding.
Wow. I got to see that. I struggle to picture what you're saying, but I can't wait to see it.
I didn't do a very good job.
No, it's some people can see things in their head, other people can't. I can, but I guess you didn't do a good job.
Actually, yeah. I only learned about that recently, but like literally they can't see anything. Like they can't picture like a square in their head. They have to like see it again.
Not even they probably can't even picture a ray.
Couldn't even do a ray.
Yeah, I also found out some people can't, which I still don't believe. Some people don't have an internal monologue going on.
It takes all types, I unfortunately do. Yeah.
Someone's listening to this and they're thinking about it, but there's nothing, no internal monologue in their head.
Yeah, they won't be able to be like mad at us.
A series of beeps and boops.
Hey, I'm sure they're getting by.
It still works, yeah.
So getting to this like technical, aspects of clothing and footwear, like it's something that you really dove into, whether it's like kind of dotted through the videos, like where it's, I don't know, kind of like relevant, or like we're just going to break this thing down. So a couple days ago, I watched the Paraboot one, which is kind of one of my favorite brand stories. It's like they make their own soles and like this is how they started. And, like, does that matter to anybody? Like you say in the video, like, no, but like, I love it. I think it's one of the coolest things about the brand. But the second half of the video was like a breakdown on like stitch down Goodyear welt and then the Norwegian welt that they use.
Yeah.
Do you see your audience like digging in on that? Because that one, like, maybe it was the brand, maybe it was the title, maybe, there's all this like YouTube stuff that can determine like maybe the algorithm was off one day. That one wasn't like huge views compared to a lot of your videos. Do you see people like into that kind of stuff? Like they want more and they're like kind of saying that, or from like a analytics perspective, maybe on like other videos, or is that something that people are like, oh, here we go, like snooze fest, like he's talking about like nerdy shit again?
That's actually a great question, because I'm also trying to find that out myself. And recently the videos I'm putting in like both, like here's a story, here's this, and then like here's 10 other products too at the same time. And it got to the point where I was like, like I did a video on why these two lines on Levi's denim jackets exist. And a lot of the comments from people that didn't follow the channel were like, can you just get to the point? Why do those exist? And I was the same thing as you, where I'm like, well, you can't get to the point without talking about the history of Wrangler, the history of Lee's, the history of Levi's, and then getting there. So it's a balance. It really, like, what I always try to do is find what is the coolest thing, the most exciting thing. And now I'm realizing, stick to that. Don't like Clarks. I just did a Clarks video and then I reshot the Clarks video, because the first one was, this is why Jamaica is obsessed with Clarks. And then also, this is basically every model that Clarks offers. This is how they're all made. This is the history of them. This is the materials. This is what they mean by rough out versus suede. And I watched it and I was like, if I was someone watching this video and the title of the video is why Jamaica is so obsessed with Clarks, I probably wouldn't care about all that stuff in the middle. So you got to find that balance of like, does it help answer that question? Like, is it a cool story? And then I think it works.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Like, how do you, as somebody who like does care about this stuff, and personally you're interested in it, but I get the sense that you like understand the power of like sharing that, because you kind of, you can like activate an audience in a different way, like to think instead of just buy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like how do you keep that on the rails, right? Like I imagine you want the channel to grow for the channel's sake, for the clothing brand's sake. I mean, I guess at the same time, like you're selling expensive clothing that is, made in the right way with details that you consider to matter. So like maybe you have to educate them, but like how do you toe that line? How do you not like abandon your initial mission as, the realities of like running these things as a business come into play?
Luckily, I feel like most stuff, well, everything that really is on the channel is something where I'm like, oh, that's kind of fascinating. Like that, you probably can't see it behind the Padmore and Barnes, but there's Polar Tech, which is like a really lightweight synthetic fabric. And it's just fascinating to talk about. Like, developed for the military, it's a mesh fabric, like Sliver knit. And I find that for the most part, like that, luckily, a lot of people find that interesting, where I'm like, here's a shirt or here's a fleece that weighs like 2 ounces, is incredibly warm, but the second you start walking, it cools you down because it's mesh. People are like, ah, cool. Another great example is, I forget his name, the guy from Front Office. He does a lot of Instagram videos just being like, this is how a sheep is shorn. This is how this is shorn. This is the sheep, basically. And he gets huge amounts of people watching. It's just fascinating. Like, now that we have the internet so fragmented, people are like, oh yeah, I'll watch something hyper niche as long as there is something cool behind it. And a lot of the times, for me at least, like the least cool thing is like, here's what it sits like on my body. It's everything else. And I don't think there's a ton of other people diving into it. So it kind of works where it's like, I want to see how that t-shirt works, or how these pants work, or how this works. And then balancing it, like Paraboot, my dad will always give me feedback immediately. And he called me and basically was like, those are ugly. And I was like, that video's not going to do well. Like, the second he said, I would never buy those. They're super... Oh, no, he said, did you buy those with your own money? And I said, there's no way this video is going to do good. Because that's me. I'm super excited about the story, about how they were, derived from, like, architects and vet shoes and stuff like that. But you kind of lose it. The general audience is like, yeah, but I wouldn't buy those, so why am I going to watch this video? So it's finding that and thinking like, yeah, I think that'll really work well. And then trying to be correct more than you're wrong. And sometimes you have that moment where I'm just like, oh yeah, now looking back on that, that's a very weird looking product that not a lot of people are going to wear. I just like how it's made or the history behind it.
I mean, Paraboot Michaels are like totally dope shoes that if you don't spend a lot of time looking at shoes, you won't understand them.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. You can go far. You can like fall into the little like boot and shoe hole, and then listen to the people that are in that hole with you, where they're like, go crazier, and you're like, okay. And then you're like, oh, I never knew that brass wire construction was made like this or did like this. And then most of the people are just like, those look really heavy. And I'm like, they are. I just didn't even mention that. I was so excited about this,
Are you talking about those Goral boots? They're incredibly heavy.
Incredibly heavy. I was doing, we do a little wool collaboration with a woman in Scotland, Sam Goats, Woven in the Bone. Coolest thing ever. She recommended them to me because she's closer to them. And she was like, oh, you should do something like this. I just saw them on like the local news. And then Goral dropped it. And I was like, oh yeah, there you go. Small world.
Yeah. Made at the William Lennon factory.
Yeah.
Crazy. But like, that's the thing, like, right? Like, people don't care how their shoes are put together, and they don't really know how their shoes are put together. But when you do know and you see that machine operating, you're like, holy shit. That's going to stay together.
There's no way that's coming apart. If you find out also, this is why they're made that way. That I find is usually the coolest part. Like, this is designed specifically to be used for XYZ. That's why there's no seam on this boot, or the seam is hidden, or there's just one. It's a hole cut. It's because of, well, you want to show off your skill, but also when you're hiking, really convenient for going in the water. And then it's like, oh, cool. People that don't really care about the construction are like, now that's fascinating because I've seen those boots. I never thought about that.
On like original purpose, did you find out anything else on like the vet shoes part of the Paraboot Michaels? Because that is like, or architects, like,
Yeah.
I know that certain people like maybe gravitate to like a type of shoe, right? Like you go to a hospital now and everybody's wearing like Crocs, right? But yeah, there's often these ones in the past where you're like, what are you talking about, guys? Like how in the world was this like supporting the like veterinarian / architect lifestyle, like dual lifestyle?
The architect was one of the most confusing things. The vet, I said in the video, that made a lot of sense because it's the way they construct it is really, if you think about blood or fluids or whatever falling down, it's like, yeah, it goes off and you can kick it off easily. It's like a little ramp. That, I'm like,
Yeah,
I get
right,
that.
All right.
Architects, I don't know. That's just from deep in their archives. Like, this was designed for these people. And I was like, interesting. And then if you look at nurses' shoes and stuff like that, you can see how they went from basically like moccasins or something similar to regular Crocs, or what are the other ones? Danceco's or something like that.
Yeah, those Danceco clogs. I feel like all those doctors should not be wearing Crocs all day long. Like, I don't think that's like supportive.
That's one of the big questions I have now is like the comfort we have is unbelievable. Like when I was in New York, I would just see all the kids are wearing essentially just foam cages on their feet now. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, that's because I'm thinking I want to do a video on the history of footwear going from like there was no left and right to like now we have these little like puffball of foam things where even like knit uppers on running shoes are going to be outdated pretty soon because you can just pop these out of a mold super fast. And I look at that and I'm like, what is next? What are we walking on?
Terrifying, honestly. But do that. You should do that. That one will be a hit.
That one I think will be cool just because it's like, I want to start with, I think it was the India's army boot is the one where they didn't have a left and right, and then just like start to go through everything because it's just so weird to see what we're wearing now.
That seems like a solid starting point. You should talk to Elizabeth Semmelhack, who runs the Bata Shoe Museum in Toronto, I think, right? She's like the greatest overall footwear historian that I've ever spoken with. Yeah, her episode is like absolutely killer. I was like, tell me the history of shoes. And she's like, all right, here we go.
She's like, do you like plimsolls? You're like, I don't even know what a plimsoll is. She's like, it's a sneaker.
We didn't start there, trust me. But yeah, I think she's just an incredible source of like, general knowledge. There's people who know more about cowboy boots than her, know more about whatever than her, but like in general, she's got the goods.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating to see the changes, especially when it's someone's job because they just, what's boring to them is fascinating to everybody else type deal. And that's the stuff I really want to get into. Like, I guess I shouldn't spoil it. Something about...
Spoil it.
Should I spoil it? Okay, great.
Why not?
And you might be able to confirm this or deny it. So, original Chuck Taylors, and no one make a video on this before me because this is my video. Original Chuck Taylors didn't have those little metal grommets on the bottom. And I was doing a video on Clark's looking at boots of World War II and stuff like that. And the deck shoe started to get really popular then. And they added those grommets so that way when you're on a ship, essentially, the water can come out really quick. Nowadays, it's on every Converse that you can possibly see. It's like a staple of that. But I was looking at that and I was like, oh, I always just figured like basketball shoes, sweat, but it's canvas, so it's hyper breathable. Is that actually a remnant from World War II deck shoes that, Converse, Chuck Taylor were just like, or I guess just Converse. They're like, that's cool. We'll keep it on.
It costs them more money to do it. Even though it's not functional now. That's these things that get embedded in kind of anything. But like certainly an iconic shoe like that, like there's the materials, there's a machine that has to do it. Like somebody has to check it. I'm sure sometimes they get fucked up. Like, but I don't know if there would be like outrage if they took it away.
Yeah,
nobody's draining through their Chuck Taylors.
No, not anymore, at least.
But it's just there,
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things though. I'm like, is that why you put it there and now you can't take it away? It's another thing where I look at like a lot of jackets and shirts and I'm like, that little pocket on a t-shirt. Not a lot of people have cigarettes anymore. So like you can't really put anything in there modern days. Maybe not even a pencil, a wallet, but it's still there and you still prefer it. But now it's more of like, it's just there. It's part of my shirt.
I like a good pocket on a t-shirt.
Same.
They're good too, if you're like a contractor or something, that's kind of where I always figured. Or like you got like a couple extra fishing hooks in there. Like actual utility, yeah. Maybe a pocket square. Who knows?
Maybe a pocket square. Pocket square in a t-shirt, that's a classy man.
So on your videos, we've talked about the historical information and the technical information and all the research involved in that. And then just like the production of them, like, yeah, it's like you're watching like Wes Anderson, like review t-shirts or I don't know if that's like a compliment or something.
Yeah, totally.
Heard every day or never heard but like there's like a style to it. There's definitely evolved. Like there was always like a little bit of it there in the beginning, but I think, it has like really grown. It's like, it's very distinctive. It makes them watchable. Like it seems like a lot when you add all those things up together. Like what is your production like approach and cycle look like for these videos? Like you're not just sitting at a table like waving around a pair of shoes.
Yeah, right. Nowadays, it's couple days of researching, depending on the product, trying to figure out like, okay, if I really like this product, what is the story behind it? What can we find that's interesting? What path is the coolest to go down? And then researching information, checking information, everything like that. Then I usually do B-roll just to make sure, because that's like, I'm looking at everything, make sure there's nothing I missed. And then I'll go out in the woods, film. That is really just finding nice spots in the woods, trying to go at a nice time so I can actually kind of relax. Like yesterday I went out like near sunset. So it's just beautiful being in the middle of nowhere, just talking about things. And then it's me in the woods saying things a bunch of different times. And then sometimes being like, oh, I think that said that better the first time. Or trying to like rewrite the script as I'm just sitting in the woods being like, oh, that actually would go better here. That would go better there. And then editing. And I just started working with an editor named Holly, who's amazing. But now finding out that like, I always do the rough cut because a lot of it's just, I'm like, well, we can't say the crepe is this hard because of this information. So we have to put it. So I do that part. It's all about crepe really lately. But
I've noticed that. Yeah. In general. Worldwide.
Okay. So it's not just me. Yeah. So anyways, we mostly talk about crepe, but finding out that I'm talking about the little food, by the way, not boots or anything like that.
No, I got that. Yeah. Nutella.
Yeah. Mostly about that. So I'm finding now that I do the rough edit. I used to do the whole edit. And doing the whole edit, like I'd like to not think on the edit. Just anything, it's like, oh, put that there, put that there, put that there. But don't have anything thought out of like music, what you want to put in certain spots. Because then you get to play around. And then you think of things. And if there's a problem, you're like, try and fix it that way. But now with an editor, I'm like, well, it's weird that I like, that's not how I would do it, but I also don't know how I would have done it because I didn't do it like in one go.
Right.
So now it's finding that process, which we did this time where I did the rough edit, I put in music, and then through the first patch, I'm putting graphics. So I'll say like, Holly, I think this should go here. I think this should go there. I think that should go there. And trying to find that combination of like things that you find accidentally that make things move forward. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I put that title really big. I like that. But I did it just once, like through experimentation. Holly now and I have to kind of combine that. But because that's the most fun part, is being like, can I tell this correctly and not be really rambly? And can we also make it cool? And something that's really exciting again and again and again and again for us to experiment with.
So how long does it all take to put together?
Long time. 2 or 3 days writing, usually a day filming outside. Day of B-roll. Sometimes, like Clark's, I'll go refilm it, so another day. And then editing is usually 1 to 2 days. A thumbnail I can usually do in like half a day, but then I'm like pooped because you have to think about like, what the text is going to say. How does it go? Where does it go?
Aren't the thumbnails the worst? It's like, I was done with this thing. Like, I'm done. We're ready to go. And then, like, you're not done.
It's also the worst because you could be like, that. I know the video's good, but you're not going to click on it if it looks bad.
They don't know.
Or if the title's not good, you're like, I know the video's good. You're just not going to go to it. And I don't want to make it a really clickbaity thing because I want you to like the video. I don't want to just like redirect immediately. So sometimes a video I'll have like 80 or 90 titles just all out where I'm like, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? Is that it?
Yeah.
And then if I don't title the video before we make it, then it's even harder because then it's like, well, I didn't have the title in mind, so now I have to pull it back in.
You weren't driving towards it the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. Sounds like a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's now doing the clothing business at the same time. I didn't realize that that's actually 2 businesses. So splitting time is the tough part. That's why like videos are coming out now once every 15 to 20 days. I'm trying to get it down. But then all of a sudden it's like you have people calling you about sheep or like, we can't knit this because of that. We can't weave this. And I'm like, oh, geez, trying to write and then you have to move off. So it's all kind of balancing it.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, I want to get to the girl shoes that you guys designed together because this is a shoe podcast.
Of course.
Ostensibly. But yeah, like how did the whole clothing business come around? And yeah, like what have you found trying to like small batch manufacture actually good things that aren't just from like a bunch of patterns that like a factory has sitting around and you're like, there it is, but it's ours now because we're good at marketing. Like,
yeah.
What's that whole journey been like?
It is like the base idea is really easy. You're like, well, you make a jacket, you get the material, you sew it. Everything between that, really, really hard. I'm finding. And actually, one of the biggest things I found rather, is, we're moving to doing everything in the US because we have so much stuff here. Like not most of it, but a lot of the world's like best cotton is coming from here. So I was like, oh, it's kind of cool to like mix it all in. But then you find that like the US clothing industry is made for really, really big orders or military orders or something you may never expect, like a knitting company that I've worked with a lot who invented the insulation in bunny boots, the insulation type in bunny boots, which is really cool. They're one of their main clients is, I think it's a sewer company where they have a knit fabric that like expands into the pipes, and that's their main client. So
wow.
When I'm like, oh, I want 1,000 yards of this, they're like, okay, that's not important. We want to do it. They love it. Yeah, but it's like, this other guy ordered 100,000 pounds of this. Like, we just can't put you in front of him. And I'm finding like, that is already a tough step if you want to go custom. And then we want to go really custom and really weird. But I don't have a huge order history. So I'm like calling these spinners and being like, I know a t-shirt is typically like 1 ply of yarn. We want to do hyper thin yarn 4-plied. And they're like, sure. But your minimum is 30,000 pounds and it's, it's not our thing. Or it's not something that we're going to push forward because we have 80 other brands that are 10 times the size of you doing the regular thing. So it's that. So now I found that like, okay, you have to kind of plan that out a lot more. Like we've been working on selvage denim in the US for a year and a half, and it just keeps getting delayed by 3 months, by 3 months, by 3 months. And I look back and I was like, well, I really tied up all of my money in that. Then I can't, you kind of like locked until that denim gets made and then you can keep going. So it's finding out all of that stuff that I never figured would happen, where I'm like, why does no one do this? It's like, oh, it takes a really, really long time. Unless you find the right manufacturer, because they are out there, but they don't usually have like glowing websites and marketing teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like, how do you do that? Like, just find them even. Find somebody who like not will only take the call, but then be like, yeah, this crazy idea for 100 of these that you're going to make me do all this shit. And like, if it goes really well, you might sell 2,000 of them. Like, we're in. And like, why do they want to, I guess?
It really went from like in the beginning, trying to get our first denim jacket made, I couldn't find anyone to do it. I remember I was hanging out with friends, the same friends that I came up or asked them about the Iron Snail. But we were all like at dinner and I wasn't talking and they were like, is everything okay? And I was like, I can't find a manufacturer to make a jacket. Like I've been searching for months. I've been calling people. I've been emailing. Nothing. And everybody that you email that, like, I did a video on, they don't answer that because they don't want to. I can't blame them. But all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, I want to make a jacket too. Who's your manufacturer? They're like, how about you go find them yourself? But then Naked and Famous, Bayzad reached out and was like, do you want to review a pair of our jeans? And I was like, yeah. Also, do you want to produce our jackets? And he was like, yeah, why not? So then it was like, okay, great. I got Bayzad. And all of a sudden there was a shop. So then I met with Ralph at Weatherwool. He introduced me to his manufacturers. They introduced me to their pattern makers. And then all of a sudden you had more stuff going on. I met like 4 of the people from that. Then you meet 4 of the people from that. And then it kind of starts to cascade down. And then the real turn was really the mammoth jackets, but starting to go down the pipeline. So like our Billy Goat sweaters that we're working on now are from a ranch that I just found a lady that knew the ranch and she connected us. Now it's like when you start that low, you meet the people that get all of the wool in the US, like at the co-op or something like that. And then they're like, oh, well, if you want to work with the spinners, you have to connect with this person, this person, this person, this person. And they kind of build the chain up because you have something in the pipeline that they want to succeed and then continue. And American Woolen was one of the biggest ones. They're probably probably them. They are the people that were like, we really think the Iron Snail is going to work. Like, it's a tiny order, but let's do it. And they said that to me again this year. They were like, hopefully next year, the year after that, you're a 25,000 yard order. But for now, like, let's just grow the company. And I was like, cool, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've found in all of this is that it's like relationships with people that also just kind of care and like want to do something good. Cause like there's not a ton of business sense in like an individual tiny order. But then you also will find people like really protecting, not protecting their manufacturer, protecting like their own interests with the manufacturer being like, oh man, well, we need this capacity and all that. Totally. But like, it can be a little short-sighted, right? Like things change. They might need to go to somebody else. And then that manufacturer is like, well, we just lost like a Taylor Stitch type company, right? Not saying that they're running around doing it to people. But if that happens, that's like a major loss and they don't have this kind of infrastructure beneath it of like 10 or 20 or 50 like smaller operations, which is tougher and there's more back and forth and there's like everything's different and it all has to be reset. Like I understand why a manufacturer might want to do it, but if somebody is like taking on or a supplier or whatever, like smaller clients, that can lead to other smaller clients and you start to like have that backbone too, which is I don't know. I'm not doing any of these things myself. Like these aren't kind of my problems to deal with. But that does, from just being like sustainable and supporting like cool, interesting things, I don't know. It seems kind of essential.
Oh yeah. Like you're saying, it's never the manufacturer that's like, I don't want to do it. It's always like, it doesn't really, I can't, like I would love to, but we have 10 machines. There are 10 machines making this fabric for this military, let's say. 10 machines making fabric for the military. I don't want to pause that order and say to our biggest buyer, like, it's going to be a little later than we thought. Like, not by much, but a little bit, because we have to reset the machines for, a YouTube channel guy. It doesn't really go off. So that's the tough part. And what I'm trying to do now is, like, anytime I speak with a brand, like Weatherwool, I was like, oh, you got to meet Draper Knitting Company in Canton, Massachusetts. It's like, you got to meet them because they're doing all this amazing stuff. But in the back, they showed me the wool bar where they're getting Shanico wool, some of the nicest wool ever in the U.S. And they're making all these cool things. And they're just, if you know, you know. If you don't, it's there. Like, it's not their main product, but they clearly are very obsessed with this. And now I think they're working together. I'm not positive. But it's like, great. Now Draper hopefully has me. I don't want to dox anyone else's manufacturing pipeline, but me, Weatherwool, a bunch of other people that I've connected with or that I found out are there. And it's like building that back up. So it's like, well, Michael's not the biggest order, but Michael plus these other 20 companies, they're pretty good order.
Yeah, and Michael himself is useful.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
For something other than putting in an order. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
All right, yeah, keep doing that.
Yeah, that's the goal. The biggest thing is the companies can't stop, because if they stop, then I can't make the stuff. Like if we lose the knitters, one of the finishers for knit fabric went out of business in North Carolina, and the people that I was working with at the time were like, we have to figure out what we're gonna do, because we don't know where to go right now. Like there's not the guy down the street. Those were the guys down the street. So I was like, we can't have that happen. You got to blast this stuff and try to grow it out.
No, I mean, that's the same thing that has kind of repositioned how I look at all this. Like, because we pretty much started at the same time, I think, like about 6 years ago, where I was like, I love these cool boots, and like, I think I can review them well, that'll be good. That was like, it was a little more of an idea than that, but like not much. And then very quickly it was like, wait, I love these cool boots, and if I don't do a really good job, nobody is going to be able to make them. So I got to get like other people interested and educated on it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you spoken to a bootmaker and like after the conversation, they're like, by the way, like, do you know anyone that wants to get into like stitching a boot or like making boots? Like, we could really use the help. And that has happened to me many, many times.
I mean, the labor piece of it is, there's a lot of concerns right now, like this year, last year. But I think the labor is like the overriding thing. Like what are you seeing in like garments and those kind of fields? Is it similar?
I don't think I have come, maybe one manufacturer, but most manufacturers I come across are just like, we want to keep the factory open all day. Or sorry, not all day, 24/7. We want to have it always running, but we can't even find enough people for that second shift, because if we find someone, we have to train them for 8 months, and then after those 8 months, they're an apprentice. So after that, they XYZ. But the people that want that, or the people that need that job, or the pay that we're offering at this time, or whatever it may be, that's a crazy commitment to say like, well, you have to be 8 months, then you're an apprentice, then you can get into it. So it just seems like everybody's kind of like, yeah, like we have some great sewers, or this is the guy that sews your mammoth jackets. This is the guy that's really, really good with wool. And I'm like, the guy? What about the guys? Where are the guys? What happens?
Yeah, guys would be good. Girls, peoples, just like multiple peoples. Yeah, it's crazy when you hear that stuff. Like there's plenty of it in footwear. It's like, well, they're really good. So this is, they're special. And it's like, how old are they? And like,
75.
do they have like a good doctor? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the thing I found out in making clothes and then working with brands is like, when you're not in that sphere, it's kind of just like magic how things get made. And then when you step in, you're like, oh, this is just a bunch of people in a factory. And that's it. There's nothing outside of this factory. There's no other infrastructure. It has to work or it's gone.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you made some shoes with Coral over in the UK, right?
The Samaras, yep.
Yeah. What was that like? How is it different maybe than the garment stuff?
That was, we're actually working on other stuff as we speak based off of those two things. That was fascinating because Luke on your podcast said it really well, where he was like, Luke from Russell Moccasin, where he was like, it's a volume problem you're working with instead of, which I guess it is with clothing too, but for footwear, it's specifically like, how do these fit around my foot? Because I need them to fit and put weight on them and everything like that. So that was a big thing where I was just not well versed in it. So like having Goral's side where they're like, well, no, we should go like this, or we should use this, or we should use that. This is the last we're thinking, was crazy helpful. And then designing footwear that I would like. This is something where I was like, okay, a sneaker, but also something that, as you know, I could walk in the water with, or like get really wet, or like go on a trail with. That was something that I never thought of before. So like seeing, oh, this is the sole that we can use, or like, this is what Vibram offers, was a very weird experience to be like, oh, I kind of just always assumed like, it just, the outsole kind of fell onto the boot. So really a first round product is the time, at least for me, where the next round product, I'm like, okay, there's 900 things that I now realize that I can't wait to implement. And that was that 100%. I actually just got off a call with Coral yesterday talking about that.
You were happy with how they came out?
Happy with how they came out. And the thing I learned is that, like, I designed them I wanted to make a sneaker that you can go on a trail run with. But I found that, like, okay, the sole we used is something that people associate, rightly so, with ice. So a lot of people were like, well, I don't want to wear these if I'm not on ice. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or I said to Goro, like, I want to do
hockey coaches. Like,
yes, mostly hockey coaches and big champion hoodies. But where I was like, I want to use the nicest vegetable tanned leather from this tannery. I want to use this leather from this tannery and this and this and this. Just seeing like, okay, that price target that I had in mind, we went above, and like, I didn't actually know that, you know, because I have also never collabed. I've done stuff myself, so I'm like, okay, that leather's this much, that leather's this much, but overall happy with them. It's just whenever you make something, at the end of the day, you're like, okay, so like this is what I would change on the next one, which is a big problem when I would talk to people like out and about the Mammoth or the Prologue. I'm like, oh yeah. So like that sleeve is actually gonna get a 1/4 inch tighter, and they're like, doesn't particularly matter to me. And I'm like, but how could you wear it knowing that? And it kind of goes down this line of like, no one cares, or they do, but there's a lot of stuff you'll never notice that's very exciting. And I noticed Weston said this on one of his earliest collabs. He was like, I really love the simplicity of Koyo's footwear. Like, I think that's brilliant. And I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because then when you make it, you're like, oh, that is brilliant. How they didn't use that there. They just did this stitching type, or they just folded the leather that way. And you get sucked in.
yeah, and like I think whether it's like an individual like made to order boot, or especially like some of the earlier collaborations we did, it was like, let's just throw everything at it, man. We got just
That's
all these different
exactly what I was saying.
things
Yep.
and features and colors and just like the coolest stuff that everybody loves. And then you're like, wait, but does it actually like work? You know?
Or does it, like, the Samara is a hyper specific thing. Like, Dom, who owns the company, wears his every single day. I wear mine whenever I'm going out for like an actual trail run or something like that. I put mine on. Hyper specific. And it's like, we put all of these parts together. And when it came out, it was hyper specific. And it's like, oh, I didn't need to throw everything at that. I needed to take like basically what you're saying, take a boot, see like what things would I change without trying to reinvent the wheel, and then contribute to that brand or something like that in the best way you can.
Yeah, I think that's the actual trick, is like just that winnowing, you know, and like not needing for it to have every single bell and whistle to like succeed as something distinctive too, because you're trying to make something that like stands out, right? So the natural thing is like all the crazy shit. And yeah, I don't know. It's maybe in some ways it's like more exciting because ultimately, like especially with footwear, like it should be functional.
Yeah,
I like to think. But yeah, it takes a little bit to like, you got to go through some interesting decision making, I would say, to get to like a bit more clarity on that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the first time, like, Russell is the second collab that I've ever done. And it's like, with Gorilla, it's just, you know, late nights where I'm like, what can we do that's never been done before? Like, what is it? What is it? And then with Russell, I'm like, can we put army studs at the top 2 eyelets? And Luke's like, oh, that's a great idea. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, look at the added
we already have them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that's so simple. Or I'm like, what if we did this Premier Chukka in weathered oak, but we did the rough outside? And he's like, yeah, it's awesome. And he calls me, he's like, this looks really good. And it's like, you didn't reinvent anything. You just said, like, I would wear this. Or, like, that's a little bit of pop. But these legacy brands, they already make a beautiful product. It's just like, let's get a different version with slight tweaks instead of being like, okay, so, like, the overlap seam is cool, but what if we pulled it 2 inches down and the overlap, like, coincided with the midsole? It's like...
Don't you dare.
Yeah. I made that up, by the way, off the top. But that's something where it's like, I mean, we could, but this boot has been the boot for 125 years. Do you think we should? It's like, no.
No. And like, yeah, and you got to like get them to like do it too, you know, on a small order.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's a part of the calculus that I don't think is like always considered by, you know, like the customers, is like, just convincing them to do things. And sometimes they're going to tell you no because like it's not a good idea and it'll be less functional. And sometimes they'll tell you no because like that was just a crazy idea that you threw at them. And they're like, are you kidding me?
The original Prologue denim jacket, we put a patch. Well, we include a patch on the denim jacket. The original pattern, I had a circle cut out of the arm, and then we were going to put the patch on a denim backing and then sew it together. So the patch was integrated into the arm. And Naked and Famous was like, absolutely not. And I remember I was so frustrated with them. I was like, let's just try it. Let's just make a sample. And they were like, you don't need to do that. Tell me why you do it, and then we'll do it. And I was like, because it's cool. It's going to sink into the arm.
They love that one.
Yeah, it's nothing. And it was the same with like, well, actually, with Goral, I was really glad that Dom stepped in and was like, let's make a Samara. Let's make it. And then like, it will evolve over time, but because I had tons and tons of designs, I think I sent him like 16 or 17 mock-ups. And I was like, this is what it's called. This is this. This is that. And then, like, sometimes you just need to start. And same thing with Russell, where I was like, I love the Premier Chukka. I'm in Maine. I live in Maine, but now I'm in Maine all the time, and I'm hiking. I'm going on canoes and stuff like that. I want a lightweight footwear I can put on. Like, let me look at your catalog, see what we can do it in a cool leather, and then make some changes so it is that toss-on boot. Because it's really hard to put on your bird shooters when you're trying to hang out with friends who tossed on their Crocs and walked away. When you're like, I just gotta lace these 8-inch boots up or 7-inch boots up really quick. So like that, you change the philosophy of the product, and it's like great. Yeah. It's already perfect outside of that.
Although those bird shooters might be more waterproof. Michael, why are you so obsessed with if people's shoes are waterproof? It's like in every video you're in a stream.
I'm like, well, gotta go in the water. Gotta see how these work. It's I feel like. For me personally, I've said this to Taylor. I don't think I've said it to other people. I love the concept of like shields. Always been obsessed with shields. Like Taylor, if it's raining outside, if it's pouring, I'm like, oh, we are inside. We are being protected right now. Or I'll be in my car and just be like, wow, look at that. Very similar with boots, where I'm like, look what they can do. Like
that bird
I'm
would have
shielded.
flown into my face.
Yeah, that bug would have killed me. Can you believe it? It's something like that.
Safe.
But that's been my entire life. Like when I was a bachelor in New York, or not a bachelor, but lived alone. Middle of the winter, open the window, put the covers over my head, sleep like that. And then I'd wake up and be like almost laughing because I was like, I'm so warm under my shield. And then like carried through everything. Now, Taylor, we can't do that because it's very cold and your pipes could explode. But it fits that with boots. But at the same time, like a lot of these boots they're work boots first and foremost, but now they're $800 and nobody wears those for work. So it's fun to be like, look what they can do. Like they still work for what they were intended for. And that, I think, one is fun to see, but also fun to do. And fun to see even for me when I'm editing. I'm like, wow, those are really submerged and there's no water coming in.
Yeah, no, there's like actual proof. And don't get me wrong, like I love an overbuilt product that I'm like in no way pushing to its intended limits. It's kind of one of my favorite things.
Showing its limits is really like the Mammoth jacket. Well, even before the Mammoth jacket, going outside on the worst possible day at the worst possible time, like when it's blowing 50 and it's snowing and it's awful. You put on the jacket and you're like, oh, this is cool. Like when we did that in Scotland, it was like gusts to 75. And I was like, I don't even feel the wind through this jacket. That's amazing. Because you're so used to like a technical nylon Gore-Tex 3L laminated layer that it's like, wow, look at this. This is cool. This is awesome. And it works.
Shields.
Yeah, that I could have just said shields.
Could have just said shields.
Yeah.
So you're on YouTube. You can delete a video, but YouTube is like kind of forever, right? Like you're not going to do it. And there's a lot of things, a lot of information, a lot of, kind of takes in, not like hard takes, but like interpretations or evaluations of a product in your videos. You can't really take it back, but if you could, is there a bit of information or like a historical snafu that you want to like mea culpa right now?
The Oneida Russell moccasin video, I wish I was nicer to the LL Bean moccasins. Just that, because some people loved them.
Respect.
It was just the comparison of like, you're holding like you're holding an Oneida, like an insane moccasin versus an LL Bean one. And instead of being like, this is what you're getting for this price, I was like, these are bad. which is not true. They're just different for the price that you're paying. That was a big one. And then some stuff on denim where I'm like, that's probably not 100%. Like, I didn't nail it. It was really, really close, but it's not 100% true. That, like, little stuff where if I watch a really, really old video, I'm like, I would have said it this way instead. Or I would have said it not in a definite way.
Oh, yeah. I feel like at this point, you're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Not being like, that's it. We're out. And I'm your only source of information. Which is good. Like, again, it makes people think, but it's also, again, even if it's not what they want the answer. That's the answer sometimes.
Frustrating one recently is the Billy Goat sweaters are from Targi sheep, which is a crossbreed. Thicker fiber, longer fiber, generally, at least the fiber we're working with, than like merino, for example. So I was like, oh, it's going to be way stronger. I go through all of this. I go through testing and stuff with all of our sweaters, and it is stronger, but not by as much as I thought. And I was like, oh, I thought it would be like light years ahead instead of just like decently ahead. So then I go back through the supply chain. I'm asking everybody, and I get to one guy, and he's like, oh, well, since merino is a purebred, the molecular makeup, I don't know the right terms, but the molecular makeup of the fiber is actually more continuous. So you can go a little bit finer and get more strength than you would with a crossbreed. And it's something like where I'm like, okay, there's nothing on that online. It's just, you find it out way, way too late in the process. And like, if I made a video on them, that's the point where I'm like, well, not that ours is not stronger, but I would have liked to say that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But like, go back and get that information out there, It's a little nerdy, but I liked it.
I haven't even released the video on the Billy Goats yet, so luckily that won't happen. But it's stuff like that, where you're like, well, technically, shorter staple cotton is used in jeans, in Japanese denim, mainly. And that's not as good as medium staple or longest staple for pure strength. But then that depends on XYZ, depends on XYZ, depends on XYZ. So it's like the old video where I just said short staple, not as strong, long, or you see, you get stuck in it even now. I'm like, I can't say not as strong because it depends on how it's spun. But I hope I would like to be just a little bit looser at the end of the day.
But like, there's a lot on the internet of, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
That, and then like, as long as you're transparent, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're like, I can never say this is stronger than that because there's 30 other factors. Fine. But there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of videos where people are like, oh, this is better than that because of this. And it's like, but it's not,
Yeah, no, it's not. And like, I think to the LL Bean point earlier, like, I'm going to take those Russells every time.
Oh, same.
No question. But telling people these shoes that you love, and maybe you're buying a new pair like every Christmas, right? Like, because they wear out or they get stinky or something. But like, these shoes that you love, you don't love them. You actually
exactly.
Don't, and you really shouldn't. Like, It's not like what people want to hear, but it's also not true. Like,
exactly.
Maybe you would love these a little more, maybe, but like, they do.
That's no foam in heritage boots. I say to a lot of people, I'm like, you'd probably like a little bit of foam, just generally if you're wearing them every day.
Exactly. And I'm like, look, I think you will really start to appreciate this no foam thing. It might take a little time, but like, I feel bizarre every time I put on a pair of sneakers or something, even with like a little bit of pour-on in it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm not used to it. Maybe you've worn them hard enough so like they fit well. Maybe it is like this purity thing that you start to get attached to, like once you get into these things.
Yeah.
But, you can't necessarily just convince people that they're going to love something that like they might not, especially at first. Then they're like, why are you making me wear these hard boots, dude? I paid a lot of money for them. It's like, just keep wearing them.
You're going to love them.
And like, yeah. I do believe in that, but yeah, I think that, you'll, and like people not wanting to buy something because it's got a little foam in it is completely reasonable.
Totally. Both, as long as you say it correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the messaging is important.
And the peak to that LL Bean story is the moccasins were incredibly hard. Like, I knocked on them in the video. It sounded like I was knocking on wood. And I showed that as an example. And then I went to LL Bean, because I live in Maine. And I was just like, let me see these moccasins again. And that pair, super supple. And I was like, okay.
Right.
You know, like clearly I got some weird thing. And that's something I see on a lot of videos where people will be like, quality of the brand, not too good, found a few loose threads. And I'm like, that doesn't denote quality of the brand necessarily. That denotes like, did someone snip that? And not that that makes it equal quality, but sometimes I have called brands where I'm like, I got a lemon. Like, this is not a good one. And I know your brand reputation and I know a lot of people that have it. So I know that's not typical of you guys. What happened? Or like, what is this and what is that? And they're like, oh yeah, it's because of XYZ.
Yeah. People just like getting a product and saying this is all they make. You know, even in like huge mass manufacturing.
Oh yeah.
Things slip through. But when you boil it down to like a small, often legitimately handmade level, like that's kind of part of like what you have to love about it. And that you rarely hear that kind of preached out there. Like either it's good, bad, and that's it.
Yeah.
When it's actually just like one thing that came off the.
Yeah, that's what actually that's a big thing I found out from manufacturing. Like QC is hard to like get right. Like we do QC for the mammoths, and you find out like, okay, like 1% of the mammoths had like something that someone noticed. There was something that like you flip the jacket inside out. Oftentimes there's a little like, or there could be a little opening on the lining on the arm because that's one of the last things that you sew together. And it's like, okay, out of the 500 we sold, there was 1% or a little under 1%. Drove me insane. And then you talk to a lot of people and they're like, no, that's a pretty good number. And I'm like, okay, but let's try and get it basically to zero. So now we have a guy that we hired that goes through everything. We have this huge list that he goes through. And it's one of those things where I'm like, the construction is fantastic. It's just the guys that make it, the guys that check it, and then finally when we send it out the door, sometimes it's hard to see that little tiny like half-inch gap that didn't get closed up. But the product is still fantastic. And now we know some guy has to check there and check here and check there. But a lot of these small brands, including us, that's an added cost, that's added time, and then most of these brands are like 1 to 2 people. So it just means like they have to do that. And then it's like, I know you make these really well. It's just that one didn't come through correct.
Check them harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Spend your time. God damn it.
Spend it. Well, that's the big thing. Now we have an actual like, I'm going to say pretty good system. Like now it's a 3-point check where like goes to the manufacturer, goes to an independent person, goes to the warehouse, and then I'll a lot of times go to the warehouse now and be like, okay, it's good. Just because it's stuff goes through.
Yeah, and I imagine like one of the benefits of like the smallness, which means you have to do everything, and especially selling something that's like of quality, is that, you know, you'll actually hear from customers. Like they won't just send it back and be like, where's the refund? Like they might point things out to you and you're like, ooh, we got to tighten that up a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's got to be nice.
Oh, it's super nice. And it's like, there's just stuff where I'm like, I didn't think about it that way. You know, I would have never thought about that. But you wrote me like 15 paragraphs, 7 a.m, and just said 10 things that I wrote down. Or like 10 things that Lyle, another guy that works with us, was like, ooh, that's fantastic. We should do that. Or like, why is the button on the collar the thing that we had 2 mammoths that got sent back the same day, and you have a catastrophe. It's because the button on the collar, like, these are people that are following instructions making it. And the mammoth is very complex and kind of weird because we have the liner in the middle of the jacket. So the last thing that you have to do is sew the buttons on and put a button up at the tip top of the collar. And that's something where it's like, okay, this finally got through, and the last thing that anyone's going to remember is that there's an extra button in a weird spot right here. So it's like that final thing. Where I'm like, I can't blame you guys. This is a very weird jacket that's very complex.
All right. You keep talking about jackets, so we're going to do the last one on shoes.
Let's do it.
You get 3 pairs of shoes for the rest of your life. Everything has to go. Those 3 last forever.
Okay.
They're going to be fine. You know, and there's like situations, you know, how are you dressing, utility.
Oh,
what are you going with?
Dressing. Ooh, the dressing part.
I know. When you start to throw that in, you're like, oh shit, right. And like, and the wedding is fine. Like you don't worry about like suits because it's only
okay. That was my big thing. I was like, well, one of them is a dress shoe then. Definitely Russell Moccasin backcountries. Those are my current favorite boots. Has to be something. I have to get my like walk out the house boot for all situations. Right now, it's a pair of the original Blundstones. It's still that. They're just trashed. But like, if I'm gonna go run out behind Taylor, it's that. And then is running the same thing as the wedding?
I never think about running. It's not a computation for
People
me.
don't chase you when you go outside.
Like, they'll always get me, whatever I'm wearing.
Okay, yeah. I don't mean as because people like you. I just mean the dangers.
Yeah, they'll get me too.
Oh, geez. Okay,
Yeah.
even with the adrenaline.
Yeah, it's not like a high foot speed situation over here. I look really fast. A lot of people are like, "You must be really fast."
Taylor, my girlfriend's incredibly fast, unbelievably fast.
No, none of this running stuff. Like,
Okay,
come on,
good.
real shoes.
Ooh, I want a sneaker, but the toughest part maybe the Crown Northampton German Army trainer right now.
Oh yeah, you love those.
I love those. Are amazing. And every outfit I put them on with, I'm like, wow, this really looks like I thought everything
That'll
out.
do.
Yeah, I'm still looking for, which I was just saying to girl yesterday, little teaser. I was like, I want to get that sneaker that has the different colors, looks more like a mass-produced sneaker, but isn't. Is a Goral-produced sneaker, a Crown Northampton sneaker. So I'm still looking for that. Because in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, one day I'm going to wear sneakers, but I can't bring myself to do it.
All right, we'll have you back on when you figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully it's one of mine. Hopefully I'm holding one. And I'm like, it's this one.
Michael Snail.
Michael Snail, Ben Stitchdown.
Love this, man. Huge thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. See you around out there.
All right. Peace out.